Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
Today's question is, where did you come from today, and how did you get here? My name is Bob, and I walked from Waller at Stonewall.
I'm Rob, and I walked up Bruein from 18.
Rut, Telegraph Hill through Bars. Carl, I drove across the bridge. My psychedelic car.
Snake, I walked from the cast room.
George drove over from Alameda.
Nicholas, where are we going?
How did you get here today? Where did you come from?
From my house.
I'm Kay, and I drove from East Bay.
West side of Gold Valley in my car.
Mark, I drove over from Oakland.
I rode over with a grandfather.
I'm Terry, and I walked from the West Triangle.
I'm Paul, and I drove my rental car from the Hague. I'm Bill, I drove from Oakland.
I'm Peter, I was driven from the Hague.
David, and drove from Sonoma.
I'm Kevin, and I drove from the Panhandle.
And Paul, I drove from Oakland.
Colonel Mustard in the library with
Seth, and I drove from the Royal Side.
David.
Harb, I kept the Reading 27 to the Reading 22.
Richard, and I drove from here in Mission.
Jim, and I drove from the Adoration.
John, and I walked from Henry Street.
Steve, and I walked from Dolores and Plain.
Roger, and I drove from Venista to North Concord Martinez, but then took the train going to Bartholomew.
I'm Michael, and I live in Inner Mission, and I normally walk the bicycle, but today I had to get the newsletters.
Did anyone come in after you started?
I'm sorry, my name is Jim, and I got to come over in the Dino ride from Emory to Oakland.
I'm Don, and I took the 49 bus from Van Ness, walked 3 blocks to get there, and got off at 20th, never ever remembering if it's 20th or 21st Street. And I have a tight schedule after this, so if anybody's driving back in the vicinity of anywhere near the Gay and Lesbian Center or walk by Oak Street, I appreciate it. I leave sort of soonish after we have tea.
Will you introduce yourself, Don?
Okay. First of all, it'd be helpful if I had a watch. That'll be helpful. That's more time than I remember having since I haven't been here for a while. And the last time I was here, of course, they had a break, and then it was hard to get people to come back in. Good, I'm glad to have the time. I don't know if I use it all. But, so I came to talk about in part, about the correspondence with gay Buddhist prisoners. Correspondence with gay. I'm sorry, Herbie, I'll talk loud. Correspondence with gay Buddhist prisoners. Just to let you know a little bit about that, and then I'll talk make a little personal statement and also have some stuff to give out. In the Bay Area, there is located at the San Francisco Zen Center, there is a group called the Prison Dharma Network. And this is a kind of a consortium of various Buddhist communities and 2 yoga centers also, which also teach meditation and yoga. The idea behind it was to serve the needs of Buddhist prisoners in this area. So the activities consist of teaching, conducting yoga and meditation classes in the county jails, the one located by the freeway and the San Bruno. The one at the freeway is like the Hilton of jails. If you want to know what it looks like inside, if any of you saw Oz, it looks like Oz inside. That is, it's the same. For all I said, they either took it there, or else that's a modular kind of prison that is built all over the place, because it's very similar. The San Bruno jail is an awful place. It's run down. It's very hot. The guys break windows in the summertime because it gets very hot there, and there's very little air, and they live in dormitories, 20 guys in a room, and it's very difficult for them because very often in those dormitories there are usually several very young, angry men who just recently been put in there, and so it's sort of like the older guys sort of have to always be very careful not to get involved with a fight, or the more experienced ones with these guys that are, well, on the edge, I guess. That's what San Bruno is like. It's not like that at the county jail. In addition, I think because of the fact that there were sitting groups in the county jail in which some men would come for up to 2 years. County jail is for people who have a sentence of less than a year, or or sent in for probation, or were just arrested and are being processed for trial, and can't make bail. They end up in San Bruno's rule. Where was I? So I think it was some of the men who had sat for a while and been exposed. While I was there, 3 men took vows. They'd been there for a while. But a group started in San Quentin by itself, a sitting group, and they asked for a teacher. And so now there's a regular teacher that goes to San Quentin. One of the a Dharma heir in the Zen tradition, who's been around for some. Lee DeBarros, a wonderful man. He goes every week and conducts groups there. And there's also just a group. There's 2 people that go to San Quentin just to do that yoga meditation thing. Also, the groups in it consist, the Zen Center, Sokai, and I don't know. I don't remember. Vipassana. That's the extent. It's a very extensive program. The nice thing about it, and one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about today, is that the San Francisco Zen Center actually supports 2 staff members full time out of their funds. Which means that they provide housing and a stipend to these people who are practicing at the Zen Center. But they have a regular full-time job, 5 days a week, and they service these programs. That's the sort of larger picture. I want to talk about what the correspondence program is like in a couple of minutes, but I just thought it might be sort of. I thought I might tell you how I got involved in this and what it means to me in terms of my practice. I started my Zen practice, my Buddhist practice, in the Zen world, you might say, about 12, 13 years ago in New York. And in response to an ad that a new group was, a new Zen Buddhist group was forming, and it would be an opportunity to learn meditation, sort of an ad in an alternative newspaper in New Paltz, Woodstock area of New York. So I went, and I was very taken with this teacher. It was like, it was, I fell in, so to speak. I never stopped going. Although for a long time it was kind of strange. It's hard to sort of see, why am I doing this? This is a very interesting man who himself had this was the first time he'd ever actually had a teaching center. So he didn't have a definite plan on how he'd introduce the rituals of Zen and what he'd do and so on. But one of the wonderful things that he did is that when in any teaching that he gave, he always had a colloquy with the group. There was always a give and take between the people. What did this mean to you? And he would, as people would go around and sort of talk about it, with the idea that whatever it meant to you was right. There was no right or wrong, but it's a sharing, which is not something that I've experienced here in San Francisco in the Zen Center, but it was nice. And I liked it. It helped me get in. One of the things he had also was a sitting group in a maximum prison that was near him. And that came about because, well, he wanted to, but also he had been in the jail as a conscientious objector in a federal prison in World War II. The Korean War. And he tells a funny story about how that was for him. Because one time I asked him, I said, how was it for you as a very young 21, 22-year-old, pretty good-looking guy to go into a prison, And he said, well, his name is Baragato. Stefano Baragato. Bara, B-A-M, I don't quite know what that means. Anybody know what that means? Anyway. So when he got into prison, he was there a couple of days being processed, and then he got a message that this man with a Sicilian name wanted to meet him, and he was told, you better go see this guy. So he went to see him, and the man started saying, where are you from? What group are you associated with? What they pick you up for? And he didn't know who this guy was, and he wanted to know what mafia group he was in, and because he had the Sicilian name. And he was explained that he was told how it came about that he was there. And the Don, who really ran the entire Sicilian mafia group in the prison, said, no, that's pretty good. Standing up to the government, that's pretty good. You're okay. You're one of us. Nobody touches him. And nobody touched him. That is, in a way that immediately comes to mind when you think of a good-looking young man going to prison. So that was his experience. And he spoke Sicilian, obviously. This was his first language. Anyway, he had started this sitting group in this maximum security 100-year-old prison that looks like a big fortified French chateau, but fortified, with bastions and things. And that was so. I went with him regularly to the sitting group, fairly regularly. Maybe it was on Friday nights, and I would at least go 2 times a month, sometimes more. I was very taken with the experience. The part that resonated with me and still resonates with me when I think about working with prisoners is the first impact was when you go in, you may know, some of you may know this, you go in and it's highly formal. You go through a metal detector, then you get your hand stamped, then you go into a big gate slides open slowly, a big heavy barred gate. You go into a room, there's another gate, that slides past, then this one opens up, and then you go down a long hall, and at the end of it there's another big huge arch gate, and then inside there's a big, it's kind of almost atrium with on Friday nights with prisoners marching all like this. I just never got scared the shit out of me when I first walked in there. So, formidable. because they weren't walking around smiling, and greeting everybody, walking around. So then we went upstairs, and we sat, and he did what he always did with us. He'd give a talk, we'd sit, we'd have a talk, we'd have a colloquy, and then we would visit a little bit. And the prisoners were always so glad to see me, or not me, see any visitors that came, see him especially. He was very close to them. And it got to be rather intimate, as intimate as being here and hearing, a good talk by Jim Wilson or something like that, and sitting, feeling good and going outside and having tea and feeling that intimacy, and then, of course, one by one we peel off and go home. But there, it was like sort of being in that experience, being in that moment of being with these guys, and beginning to not be so aware of the prison, especially after the shock wore off of this session. And then suddenly there come the time to leave, and that's where the human drama for me always started. I could go. I could simply walk out. And I could not see them again, because they would have to stay there. It was very poignant for me. And being there and seeing some men take the vows, and also the study program he had. And one other interesting aspect of it was one time he talked to me about, he was angry when we left. He was being with from anger, was a better way to put it, because he had to take a very tough stand with the group. I didn't quite understand it, but when he was talking, he took a very tough stand in the group. It seemed that the group had decided on its own to tell him that they didn't want one of the members there who was regularly coming, because he had been convicted of molestation. They didn't want him in the group. And it wasn't just that was okay, but because he was there, other men would not come. Other men would not come to the group. And they felt that wasn't fair, and they wanted him out. And he took the position, and it had to take it very strongly with them, because when a group that you're sitting with takes a position like that against you, it's like something to really deal with. And he said there was no way that he was going to come if anybody was excluded who wished to come, no matter what their crime was or whatever they'd done. And the only other thing he ever told me about him once was, he said, "I'm not telling you who." And I said, "But there's some very bad men in that group." The men who are working very hard to get over what they did in life. There's some very people have done some very dangerous things and very bad, and nobody messes with them in the prison. So that was interesting to me too, because he didn't do that right away, which was probably good for me. Anyway, that was a very powerful connection. So how did I get involved? Well, I don't know if anybody here can remember the name. I can't remember his last name. Do you remember Ed, who used to, 7 or 8 years ago, used to process the mail and be sort of our secretary when we were sitting? David, do you remember him? Mm-hmm. You remember his last name? White. Ed White? Yeah, he was a nurse in a surgical. Yeah, right. Well, Ed was a little bit of a Virgo kind of guy, and he did a great job, because he was really organized and punctilious about how things were done. He took care of correspondence. He took care of these things. He took care of that. And he said, when he walked around one time, "What am I supposed to do with this? What is this? These keep coming, and I don't know what to do with them." He didn't have a place to put them, a place to send them, he didn't know what to do. I don't mean to make fun of him. I'm really saying this in a very loving way. Let's say, he had a temperament where he did this job. It was important to him. Like we're all, but he was a little annoyed, like there was no system to it. And I looked at it, and it was a letter from prisoners, and I said, well, let me see what I can do with it. Look at them. I don't know what's involved. And what they simply were was a request for pen pals. Well, they were more than that. It was the beginning of it all. So I started working. And I'll make one point about it. At that time, maybe I got 2 or 3 a month or something. Now I'm getting 30 and 40, sometimes more a month. And I'm going to bring that up later on when I ask for help. So that's how I got involved.
These are all gay prisoners?
Yes. All gay. All gay Buddhists. All, no, excuse me, I shouldn't say that. Let me see what happens with them. Practically every one of them is asking for a pen pal. Sometimes I get just little sort of mimeograph things that somebody snipped off from a, I would like to have a pen pal. I'm this sort of a person. Somebody who's quite organized. He, and in rare cases, she. I've only had about 4 women in all this time, maybe 5. They're looking for pen pals. Some are very heartfelt letters. There are all sorts of letters. I have letters. I'm going to distribute them. I'm going to take some time to read some of them. But the great bulk of them are pen pals. Some are very descriptive. Occasionally you get one that talks about a sangha that he's in a prison, and he wants this and he needs that, etc. And can I have a pen pal? Prisons are very lonely. Very lonely. They're very terrible. I mean, we've all been reading about Pelican Bay. In Pelican Bay, this prison in which many men are put into cells in which they have no visual contact with anybody. They do not see daylight. They do not talk to anybody. They are allowed out a half hour a day. And some of them are considered to be very bad people. That is, in the eyes of the prison people, and they may be. They may be very violent. There are stories where if you get very close, they might grab you or something, hurt you, etc. They're just so angry. But there are also guys that are just stuck there, and in some cases they're just stuck there because they're gay, simply because they're gay, and some infraction took place related to their sexuality, and they go, but not predominantly. There's another prison in Vacaville, which the Gay Men's Chorus just went to, which has about 400 or 500 gay prisoners. A very large number of prisoners. They're segregated there. Gay Men's Chorus went on AIDS Memorial Day, World AIDS Memorial Day, and sang for that. And it was very moving. I did not go because I was sick. I was very sad about that. So anyway, it's very lonely. It's very terrible. There's a man who now heads the Prison Dharma Fellowship, which is an umbrella organization that coordinates the work, provides information and newsletters to prisoners, but also But he has I meant to bring it with me. I would have liked to have read it, but I didn't. Prisons are full of rage, anger, hostility, rejection. They're just very bad places to be in. And that comes through again and again in these letters. Just to deal with the mechanics of it, probably the guys that just ask for pen pals and don't say a lot about being in the Sangha or indicate they know a lot. They talk about thinking about taking the vows, or they want a teacher, they just want a pen pal. They get a letter back from me, it comes from the fellowship. That they get a letter back and tells them something about the fellowship and what it's about, and what we do, and saying we don't have pen pals because, frankly, we don't have any pen pals unless 1 or 2 guys come forward today. But basically, we're not a big enough group to service the needs of 40 requests a month. So I send them that, but I also tell them that they can contact the Prison Dharma Network, which I think we probably considered part of the consortium because I go to their meetings. And the Zen Center will send books. I give them the books that I collect whenever I get any from this group, because they can forward them from their bookstore, library, and get into prisons, where if they would come from us, they will not get in. They have to come from the vendor or library. And they actually pay for the postage, which is a lot. And they also have various little guides on how to meditate, how to do this, how to do that, dharmic materials that they send out. And they'll send a book a month to a guy. And they know, together we sort of know what the rules are. Prisons can be very difficult about what they'll receive. Some will not only receive hardcover books, some will only receive softcover books. In some cases, the men luckily, I'm able to work out relationships with their chaplain. So the chaplain receives books. There are other men in prisons where their chaplains, who are born-again Christians, make it extremely difficult for them to practice. That's a lot in Texas and Louisiana, and where we sort of expect to find, at least stereotypically expect to find prison people like that. Although in New York State, while I was there, in the very prison that I was working in, that I was visiting with my teacher, they got a very fundamentalist chaplain who decided that men have there's a federal court decision that says that every prisoner in the United States has a right to go to religious services once a week, no matter what, unless they're being segregated for some offense. But otherwise, normally speaking, they have the right. So he decided that the men only had a right to go to any service that was related to what they put down as their religion when they were brought into prison. Now, almost nobody of the prisoners ever put down Buddhists when they came in. They put down something else. So he decided to enforce that, and Stefano went to the warden, and the warden says, "I'm not getting involved in this. I don't know what to do. I don't rule on these things." So Stefano was able to. He had a good sense of PR. He was able to sort of lobby through people in Albany, New York, to go to the corrections department that issued a ruling, or told them you can't do that. But it was for a month or two. It was very threatening and the men were very upset about it. And that happens in other prisons all over the place from time to time. So. I think I'd like to distribute some letters. I bought a bunch of letters, different copies. I have about 10 of each. It didn't seem like doing more. I would suggest, but I really think it'd be nice if you took some time and read them. I think that'll help you get a feeling for it. And I might suggest, there's one long one, and he's from a person who will probably, I suspect, here's the thing I want to read. Let me read it. I'm sorry, just to go back. This is by Fleet Mall, a man now who's the head of the organizer of the Prison Dharma Network. This is a journal called Dharma, Prison Dharma. And Fleet Mall, their editor, served time for, I don't remember what his offense was, but I think it was armed robbery or something like that. He served time. And now he's quite, he teaches all over the place. He's received Dharma recognition. An atmosphere of fear, rage, and shame pervades prisons. Interpersonal tensions are so high that the attempt to achieve any kind of serenity, let alone simple quiet, seems almost impossible. Such an environment of noise, and that's the thing I keep hearing the whole time, the noise in the prison, no place to hide. How to meditate with that. Such an environment of noise and negative emotions would be hard to duplicate anywhere else. Prisoners who want to practice Buddhism are faced with some real and difficult obstacles to meditation practice, difficulties that should not be minimized by anyone, especially Buddhist volunteers from outside. And it goes on, and I could pass it around, but I think the letters speak more directly to what it is. So the first one is the kind of letter I receive as a first letter, but it's very moving and very well done. And it's from a person in death row. So pass that around. And there's 10 copies of that. But I would suggest that everybody try to read at least one of both of the little ones if you have a chance. They're not that long. Here's another one of those. The next is from a very touching story. I know I made some. Do you have any that look like this? Okay. Nico's got paid a lot yesterday for those. Oh, that is.
How is it that they type?
He's allowed to have a typewriter. Even one or two have computers.
In Excel?
This guy's in death row, and he probably is allowed to have a typewriter. Sometimes death row prisoners can get amenities like that. You know, I don't know how he got a typewriter. I haven't had the occasion to ask him. This one.
Have a particular need, like education, you may be allowed to the former student of mine who was in the prison in Georgia for a long time. At the start, was able to use a computer because it's related to doing his dissertation. But then something happened that privilege was removed and otherwise intensive.
Right, yeah. Well, I had the very first guy I ever wrote got a typewriter about 2 3 months afterwards, and I never asked how come he could have it. Well, there's some prisons in which it's allowed, and not. There's maximum security prisons. There's prisons in which guys are enjoying themselves. This is the one from a young man who's 20 years old, who was serving a life sentence for at the age of 15 and a half or 16, engaging. He was in a satanic rite where they kill somebody. I found my relationship with him very moving. We sort of stopped writing. Anyway, so this one is another one. And it's short enough to read quickly. And then this is from, you know Joseph Urbaniak? You can pass this around. This is the other one. Pass it in the middle. This is a long letter from a guy. It should be enough for everybody to at least have one letter. I'd like you to read at least maybe 2. Here, this is the original. Just a long. That's the ones I made the copies from. There's enough for everybody to at least have one. Or yeah. It's only one. Oh. It's one. It's 10 pages.
Don is the liberation object of the consortium.
I don't know that.
Which you mentioned. I have a fact it might not be, but it's fairly new. It was begun by the Venerable Robina Corking.
Oh, yes.
Australian teacher.
No, they're not.
The headquarters now is at Chichen, which is
it's here now, in San Francisco. It was in Denver.
The Tibetan center that was down in the end part of Lassiter, and then it moved to a place in the Western Addition, and Venerable Rabia decided to put their headquarters
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
into the basement.
Yeah.
As far as I know. I've begun.
Well, I want to contact them. I don't know if there's a. I saw copies of Mandala, their publication, at the Zen Center the other day.
Yeah, they have a new thing now called Liberation.
Yeah,
a new journal.
I don't go to their meetings all the time because they mostly sort of get into things about organizing sitting groups, and I'm not. I taught the meditation and yoga workshop for a year and a half in the prisons, but I'm not doing that. And they do logistical things a lot, so I don't have meetings to go to. I keep in touch with them.
Yeah, it's odd they wouldn't be a part of it. I can ask them about that because there are. Then it gives the option of the person who wants to practice in the Tibetan tradition, and they also have a library of books they can take.
Well, when prisoners ask for teachers or get involved in it, the center staff sends them, asks them to say what tradition appeals to them, or et cetera, and then we'll try to help find a teacher that would be. If they ask for a teacher, contact with a teacher to try to find a teacher in whatever tradition they're working in. So again, that's like. I'm going to be volunteering with him probably one afternoon a week to help him with his paperwork and stuff. But I'm probably just be mailing books.
Well, if you'd ask them if they have a connection with this, or if
I can. I will.
If not, contact me.
I will.
And I will let you know how to get in touch with them.
Yes.
I'd like to share a personal story that happened with me. Some of you I talked about this. My brother has drug problems, and he broke parole one more time, and he was put in jail for a year, and he's in San Quentin now. And I never wrote him, or I didn't really know how to contact him, but he finally wrote me, and because I didn't have an address, but he had my address. And Noah Levine goes up there and gave him his book, Dharma Punks. And it's a really powerful story about Noah's experience of being in jail, Buddhist.
Anybody else familiar with Noah Levine?
He's going to be talking later next month.
Oh, good.
He's already talked once before.
Oh, yeah. So
He talks about his
I'll have to come.
calling his dad collect in his first months, being very careful. And his dad is Stephen Levine, the author of Death, a lot about death, Vipassana meditation.
Yeah.
And his dad telling him to breathe, because there's so much time. And he writes very powerfully in his book about that breathing. And anyway, I think he has a group weekly, and he distributes his book freely, and they read it and they pass it amongst each other. And the ironic thing is, I go to Noah's group on Wednesday nights, and my brother was writing how powerful the book touched him. And he's never been involved in any religious sect, but here he was starting to meditate based on this book and this experience, and he was writing to me to get the book. By the way, he was in jail. He was telling me to buy the book because it was so powerful. And I had already read it, and I already was meeting him. It was such a small little circle. Noah, my brother, and Noah was seeing my brother. So Noah and I mean, if you have contact with somebody, you can't be friends or relatives to go into the prisons and do service. So Noah said he actually couldn't talk.
But you can visit him.
Well, yeah, my brother's going to get out on February 22nd. So that the time, it takes 8 weeks to apply to get a visitor's pass, because they have to do a research background. So I just decided not to go visit him.
What's it like for you to have a brother in prison?
It's really weird, because I came looking for people about this program, and I wanted to know how I could go in and visit. But you kind of, with this kind of addiction, drug addiction, the family bailed him out so many times, you have to give up. Because a drug addict, you have to allow them to stand on their own feet to recover from the addiction. And we bailed them out so many times. And it's hard to say no. It takes a lot of love to say, no, I'm not going to get you out this time. And his letters are of total, he wants to stay sober now. I mean, it sounds really powerful. He's gone through 4 drug rehab programs, and now he's locked up in jail. He's really, truly sober, and he's truly, I think, wanting to get help. All the other times, it was a lot of show, and, he was in a hospital program, and there's a lot of pomp and circumstance. And I think this is really, his letters, it seems sincere. I don't know, it's been 20 years that I've been watching him on a spiral down. And I just hope for him, February 22nd's coming up, and I don't know, I'm sure he's going to call me for a bus ride because he lives in Los Angeles, where he's going to live. He has a girlfriend with a baby, and I don't know, what to expect. I'm sure it's going to be shell shock because, that's where he used a lot of drugs in Los Angeles.
Maybe we'll all pray for him.
Yeah.
Dedication of marriage for him. What is your brother's name?
George.
George what? I don't know.
Luros, Flores.
Well, with George Flores. We'll just say George.
Yeah.
We know who we're talking about. How is it to read this thing?
It's heartbreaking.
Any other comments?
There's a lot of longing, a lot of desire. It's interesting, a lot of our Buddhist work outside is to turn away desire, to be careful of overstoked desire, consumerist desire, sexual desire. And there seems on a primal level, it's quite different than the excesses of affluenza.
I read a couple letters, and my knee-jerk reaction, but it wouldn't be that big of a deal for me to write once every couple of weeks or once a month to somebody.
Didn't you for a while, or don't you?
Yeah, I did. And the thing is that's intimidating for me is that it seems like this is such a once you do it, that you're committed for years and years and years, and I'm a little intimidated by taking on a commitment like that.
I don't think it has to be that. I mean, you can terminate. I mean, you can thoughtfully and mindfully, end it. I've ended it for a few times with prisoners, and sometimes they've ended it with me, and it'd be different reasons. I've been writing you about your Buddhist practice. I don't want to do specifics. I don't quite remember how that happened, and sometimes it just ends. It just stops. They don't write back after 6 months or a year or longer. In some cases, it goes on. And you can always, and the other way, there are guidelines. If you become a correspondent, there are guidelines that are carefully worked out. Keeping boundaries is very important with prisoners. You can't blame. I mean, you're dealing with people who live by conning and by their wits. They may have done that. They could have done that before. And they certainly are going to learn how to do that in prison. They've got to, they don't have to. All of them don't. But, I mean, it's just a way of life. You're dealing with an oppressive system, and you've got to play the angles whenever you can. So it's helpful to keep those boundaries and for me, I don't know that I really got terribly judgmental about it, but when I realize I'm getting conned or this guy's going over the edge, in terms of how he wants to get into my life or wants money or whatever, to just say, I don't do that. I just don't do that. It's funny, the mail doesn't go to your home. It goes to either to me or to the Buddhist Center, and then we distribute it to you. And I say, that's silly, because I'm in the phone book under my address. I keep forgetting to tell the phone company to take my address out. But that doesn't mean anything. Anybody can get to your computer and find my name and address, So I know that it isn't as secure as that I would think. But sometimes they don't know that. They don't think of it. Even my son doesn't remember it. I was away on vacation, and I meant to call you, but I didn't, because I didn't have your number, because you're just a dot on my thing. And I said, well, I'm in the phone book. I don't need to change the subject. Any other comments you'd like to make?
I was wondering how those prisoners that you correspond find encounter with, especially if they change their religion
or whatever, while we're there.
There are lots and lots of sitting groups now, prisoners. There are also newsletters that they get that give them resources where they can get pen pals. And then there are other publications that describe the path or meditation, in various ways. So they come across it. I think probably the biggest thing is they come across somebody who's doing it. Like in the prison that I first was working in, all of a sudden somebody's not there. Derek is not here anymore, and I was kind of attached to Derek. I mean, he was cute and he was nice, and he was also really open in his heart. Well, he went to Attica. No, Derek went to Attica. Like that, he's gone, not in the Sangha anymore. And now he goes to Attica, and he may start a group there, or he'll meet some other people. It was a powerful experience. He may even find a very sympathetic chaplain. The chaplain that followed that terrible, he sort of resigned. I think he probably wasn't a very happy person to be with. The one in the prison that tries to stop the guys from coming. He didn't stay long. And then a big tall guy who was Muslim, black Muslim, came in, and he was overjoyed that guys, if they're getting some spiritual life someplace, that's great. He didn't care where they got it, whether they were him or not. So, there are all kinds of chaplains in prisons too. So it sort of spreads one way or another. And it is getting, the fact that in 8 years or 7 years, it's gone from 3 or 4 letters to 30 or 40 is very important. Paul.
Don, what about someone there's one letter here where the guy is very strongly identified with Christian, and he says something about Jesus Christ in my life, and it sounded like he wanted someone who was also a very rooted Christian to respond. So
was that the typewritten letter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering.
That guy, that guy's looking. That's a good PR letter, isn't it? I mean, really, with a picture up there and so on.
Yeah.
He's looking for a pen pal wherever the hell he can get. I think.
But you probably had other letters like that, and you just write to them anyway and don't really say much about Christ.
Don't say anything about it. Just say what we're about and what we do. I just say the Gay Buddhist Fellowship meets weekly and has talks, many of which are printed in a newsletter. We try to support the practice of each other, and we support and are also interested in supporting the practice of prisoners, etc., etc. We have a newsletter. I mostly don't include a copy, but sometimes I do. And it says we can also help you get books and that sort of thing on Buddhist materials. And let me know if you want more. And I get about maybe 1/4 of those that say I want a pen pal, write back and say, yes, please send me the newsletter, please do all that. They know they're clearly Buddhists, so they have to know if they want more, that's what it's going to be about. Okay. Any other comments? Good, David.
I've heard of something, I think it's in India. It's a prison system that has taken on Buddhism as a practice for the whole prison. But with that kind of support, I mean, the line between a monastery and a prison, if it's run compassionately, could be a real amazing experience. I think these people you're talking about are fighting upstream.
That was done in a prison in Washington, too. It's an experiment for 6 months. They got a grant, and they felt it was very worthwhile. And so there's some interest in among some prison officials in doing that. But of course, prison officials, like our sheriff here, well, of course, he doesn't have a hostile community to him. He's a very liberal guy, and his major problem in running prisons is dealing with the guards and having them be compassionate and open and decent, and so on. The prison officials are usually more liberal. Those who come up in the system, as rise to the top, not the political appointed wardens, but the other ones, are very sympathetic to the needs of prisoners, but the politicians make it very difficult for them. Like in New York State, when I was sitting, there were guys doing their bachelor's and master's degrees, and teachers were coming in from New Paltz to teach them, on extension. The state was paying for those teachers. And the politicians, the right-wing people, stopped that. And they passed a bill. They're getting a free education. We're paying, it's called. They shouldn't be getting this. My God, they're felons, and look what they're getting, benefits. So they actually stopped. You can't study for a degree in New York State anymore. And they, they cut down the kind of work programs they had in prisons. So in the New York State prison, where I intimately knew these inmates, to have a job was a luxury. I mean, to work in the laundry, because you had something to do during the day. Otherwise, you didn't have anything to do. Incredibly inhumane. So I want to end it. I want to end it with something a little dark, but I also want to make some requests. Yes.
Very good question. For the prisoners, of course, on an ongoing basis.
Yeah.
I'm trying to. What do you write about? I mean, do you bring your own personal life? Like yesterday, I went out to Sonoma to hiking in the mountains, or do you just talk about your practice, or how much did you share your life? How much did you?
I remember one guy. I shared my coming out story with him because he was in such trouble. I talk about the third precept, third Buddhist precept, which is interpreted in San Francisco Zen Center as do not abuse sexuality. Do not abuse your sexuality. And by that, the interpretation and the discussions always that I've been to in San Francisco are do not suppress your attraction for same-sex people if that's where you're at. You are breaking a precept by any homophobia or some homophobia that you engage in. So I may mention that. It can get intimate in terms of that much, stuff. I sort of keep personal stuff like boyfriends or things out, but I can talk about my coming out story with them or lectures I've heard or things that I know. But very often it's just human contact. I just want to tell you what their days were like. I might say, gee, it was tough. I heard, they were in segregation, and for a while I said, boy, and so on, and I have sympathy for you, and so on. And, just going on. But they do know that I'm 75. They know that I practice Buddhism. They know that I was married once, that I have children. I mean, not all. I don't put that out as like a data sheet about myself, but it can come up very frequently in the correspondence. I'll ask them, tell me about yourself. And the second one, I'd like to know what you practice, and tell me a little bit about what the practice means in your life. And then they ask me questions. One of the most frequently asked questions, is it a sin in Buddhism to be gay? And the most frequent asked question is that, so I have gotten pretty used to answering that. And I only write now to 3 or 4 prisoners. I cannot write to more. But those will come up in letters. They don't even ask me, and so on. So, 2 things. The Dana Bowl, I understand, the fee that speakers get, I will receive, which I thought was funny because I didn't want it, but actually I'm going to give it to the book program. Because in the book program, they do not get donations of, they do not get very many donations of beginners' books, strangely enough. They do not get enough to supply the demand for them and the need for them. And secondly, they don't receive any donations of queer Dharma or queer books, the queer spirituality. And so they have to be bought. And they are bought, but it costs money to buy.
You might want to approach with Winston later and see if he can give you like a reduced price.
Yeah, I have it in my mind to do that. Or if anybody here would be willing to do it for me, I really appreciate that. If they know him personally. No, maybe that's why I supposed to push it up on somebody else. So we need money, and so Dana. So I'm going to put a little extra Dana bowl outside. If anybody would like to contribute extra just for the book program, it would really be very welcome and it's very necessary. So that's one thing I'm asking for. And the other is to ask for people to volunteer to become correspondents, even if one or two of you would. It would really be good. Or if you just like to talk about it, you have a little workshop or a little coffee, and I could tell you a little more so you can explore your feelings about it. So I'd like
to add in regards to the fact that I mean, you asked me because I had an order commitment to this other person. What Tim said, can I write, maybe I'm too busy to write and so forth. It seems to me, I've found that consistency is good, and it doesn't have to be a long, complicated letter. It can just be a short postcard or a card, especially cards that have interesting artwork or something that they can put in their room, or sell, as we used to say.
Yeah, consistency. I sort of write back probably within a month of when I receive a letter. Maybe sooner. It depends on sort of when I get to sit down and start to do that sort of thing. And of course, every 2 weeks I process all these letters. So that's well. The other is I need help doing this. I mentioned being 75. I can't do this job alone anymore. I don't want to. Let's put it that way. It's not. I'm a little burnt out. It's very important to me on one hand. On the other hand, I'm running into resistances about it. I need help. I've talked to somebody who's a systems person, and they've given me some ideas on how we could break this job down if maybe 2 other people help me. So it doesn't have to be all just one thing, because how I was doing it was one way, but that, so it wouldn't have to be sitting in. So I really would appreciate it. And if I don't get the help, I don't know what I'll do. I have various thoughts in mind about how that can be done. At least to acknowledge the letters. If only just a form letter. We got your letter. Sorry, we can't do much for you. I don't know. So that's the other one. And then I want to just end with another one. I know I'm getting late.
So we have announcements first? Before
No. I mean, if you don't want to. I just like us all to maybe just try to begin to focus inward and maybe do some breathing just to get into a moment. And to think about prisons, do a little guided visualization. Just to think about a prison. And then sort of switch it around and think about yourself. Have you made prisons? Have you made a prison for yourself in your head? If you did, how did it get constructed? Who lives there? Do you know where the key to the door is, but you don't use it?
So we have announcements? Yes.
I'm the host this week, and there'll be
stuff to eat afterwards. And there's a Donna Bowl. We suggest there's a suggested donation of $5. There's hot water for tea. If you'll wash your cup and put your cup back after you use it. And there's a sign-up sheet for anybody that's new or that's not on a mailing list and would like to be. They can sign up.
Thanks. George.
Just a reminder that talks are available on the internet at the GBF website, gaybuddhist.org.
Roger, do you have an announcement?
I think it's this Wednesday that we'll be starting, for those of you who are interested in learning about Buddhism through reading my book and discussing it. We're meeting at Bob's house starting this Wednesday at 7, did you say?
It's out on the flyer, 7 or 7:30.
Yes, I think so where it is. And I have some books with me which I can sell at discount for those of you who have started reading. It's of course non-sectarian and we can range as far as we like. And I've been told by so many people that the book is profound and readable that I think it must be.
It's an introduction to Buddhism and a history of Buddhism.
Don, I was wondering if maybe people might want to go home and look on their shelves for books.
Absolutely, I meant to do that.
Okay,
I did not
keep
say
a box
that.
here if you can tell us how we can get them to you.
Yeah, I haven't received any books in a long time, and I can't believe that some of you guys don't have some books that you're not looking at too much. We don't need Ken Milber so much. Thank you, David, so much. But we really do need books. It's very important. It's one thing, one tangible thing that can be sent. You can do something with it.
How about books? I mean, I know you've seen
books, pamphlets.
Well, no, I mean, it's just like novels and stuff like that. Would that be any use?
Not unless they're dharmic. The Zen Center has its. That's sort of the agreement in the group. One guy asked for a dictionary, and we. Anybody have a dictionary? One guy wants a dictionary, and that's sort of not what they're going to do.
We call friends.
The next dictionary would be great.
I might have an old one.
Yeah, an old one would be great.
Shall we stand and hold hands in a circle?
Can we have a? Do you want to do the offering of merit? I like
David.
David.
And we'll ask David to do the offering of merit.
I think he does it so well. But David, can we include George and all prudence? Meditating. Thank you.
By the power and the truth of this practice, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all be free from sorrow and the causes of sorrow. May all never be separated from the sacred happiness which is without sorrow. And may all live in equanimity, without too much attachment or too much aversion, and live believing in the equality of all that lives.
And George.
And George.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.